Hello, and welcome to Housing for Huntsvillians, the podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Reisenwitz, and this is the first episode. And today I want to talk about why Housing for Huntsvillians. So, I've been reading a lot about homelessness recently, and I started to think about my time in San Francisco. And I thought about how horrified I felt the first time I came across a man splayed out on the sidewalk while I was walking in San Francisco with a head wound. He was splayed out on the sidewalk, bleeding from his head, and I didn't know what to do, so I called 911. And I was late, and so I reported that there was someone splayed out on the sidewalk with a head wound and went on. And as I started walking farther, I noticed more and more people who were splayed out on the sidewalk in various states of injury or severe mental illness, or just people who needed help immediately. And I realized if I stopped and called someone every time I saw someone who was in desperate need of immediate help, I would never get anywhere in San Francisco. And at some point, I realized that I had become desensitized to seeing people who desperately needed immediate help. And I realized if I ever was in need of immediate help in San Francisco, I don't know that I would be able to get it either, because everyone who lives in San Francisco becomes desensitized because you have to, because how else are you going to function? And that living around fellow humans who need help and not giving it to them, it's dehumanizing for everyone involved. It dehumanized me, it dehumanized my neighbors, it dehumanized the people who needed help. It was a fundamentally alienating experience. And I looked into homelessness in San Francisco, and I learned about the barriers to housing people there, about the regulations, about the cost, about the scope of the problem, about the entrenched interests on all sides. And I felt so overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed thinking about it now. And I look at Huntsville. I've been here 2 years, almost 2 years, and I think this is still tractable. Like, we could solve homelessness in Huntsville. It's small enough. It's the barriers that created such a difficult to solve problem in San Francisco are not here yet. But I do believe Huntsville is at an inflection point. I do believe that we're beginning to erect the barriers that will create a situation like we have in San Francisco if we do not act very quickly. And I don't want to see Huntsville become San Francisco in terms of its depth and breadth and entrenchedness of homelessness. And I don't want to see Huntsvillians become San Franciscans. I don't want to see Huntsvillians become inured to deep human suffering. I do not want to see us become alienated from each other. I don't want to see us become dehumanized because we just get used to seeing people disintegrate physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right in front of us on our streets. It's horrifying to remember. It was horrifying to experience. And I think if there's one thing I could do to be useful in Huntsville, it's to take what I have personally experienced in San Francisco, and what I learned about homelessness there, and try to stave off a catastrophe that is inevitable if we don't change course. It will happen. Like I said, this is an inflection point. So my goal, our goal, is to eliminate homelessness in Huntsville in 3 years. I fully believe homelessness is a policy choice. I think it's a decision San Francisco made, and I think it's a decision, in a way, San Francisco can be excused for making, because it's hard to see the future, but there's no excuse for Huntsville making it, because we have seen the future. We know what will happen. We see it in San Francisco. And so I believe that the scope of the problem and the reality of the resources in Huntsville is such that we could completely eliminate homelessness in 3 years if we had the political will. And if we don't, then at the very least, I want to say within 3 years, every person who cares will have no excuse not to know exactly why Huntsville has chosen to maintain a homeless population. And I think I know I can do that. But I believe in Huntsville. I believe we don't want homelessness. I believe we are willing to make the changes we have to make to make sure that everyone has a safe place to sleep every night, because these are human beings and we have the resources to house them. And so we have a responsibility to do so. So I'm excited. And I hope that everyone who is at all interested in this topic, who has any kind of heart for people who have ever experienced homelessness, who understands that we are all one car wreck, divorce, job loss, disability, mental health crisis away from homelessness ourselves. And that if we're not, it's because we were blessed with a social safety net in terms of friends and family, but not everyone is. Everyone who understands this, I hope, will join us in eliminating homelessness in Huntsville. And I'm excited to get started and meet you all and work together and learn.